I assume that you were not at all good in study.
Yeah, I'm not a very good student. We're proud Karnataka. The violin did kind of come naturally to me. You're from Gujarat, right?
What was the first encounter with violin?
And on my very first lesson, when I picked up the violin, just a part of the instrument, it broke and it fell off. I had a bit of a breakup. This is the thing that I'm like really good at. But
This is the moment. What is your relationship status? Situationship?
I was like, I don't think I should be a musician.
Being psychologist?
Vikas, Rucha, Rohani. Sorry, Avijit.
Whose idea was that?
I posed the idea, but Suraj did the work. No, so Suraj actually was doing the bands more than I was. AIO is not something that can just pop up. It's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Okay.
Sagar,
Here.
28 years of age, 60-piece of orchestra in a live concert. How the hell can you do it? Who gave you authority and money?
Yeah, so I always say it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And yeah, so it just came about from a collaboration with my brother, Suraj. We did a 20-piece string orchestra concert last year. So that's just with strings, so violins, violas, cellos, and double bass. And we played all the Hindi songs, Kal Ho Na Ho, Bazigar, Dil Ke Joroke.
So all of the Hindi songs on violin.
Yeah, well, for strings, yeah.
20 strings.
Yeah, for 20 strings, including harp as well. And we had a bunch of other Western music as well, like Mahler, Tchaikovsky, Debussy. And we just wanted to showcase the power of strings. We've been playing violin for over 20 years now. And we wanted to show people like what strings can make you feel. And yeah, we found that everyone was so inspired and was so, that they just loved the Indian music way more than all the Western music, which I was so surprised because it was like Australian Aussie audiences as well.
Yeah.
And so we're onto something. We got to make this big. And so earlier this year, we decided, okay, let's make it into a full symphony orchestra. Let's get the whole band and let's bring some Indian instruments as well and see what we can do.
So started with a 20-piece and now you're sitting with the Curious Banter. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Curious Banter. Let's deep dive into your musical journey. You said you started with your brother Suraj.
Yeah.
I think Suraj is your younger brother.
Yeah, he's younger than me. Yeah, so
Okay.
he's 6 years younger than me. Yeah.
Wow. And he's studying in Netherlands at the moment.
Yeah, so Suraj currently is overseas. He's studying civil engineering as a good Indian in the Netherlands. And so he's overseas at the moment. But so he does civil engineering and yeah, he also like composes. He plays violin. He plays in Indian bands as well. So him and I together, we both play violin. So we decided, why don't we team up in the biggest
And I
possible
think you
way.
have chosen violin to be a profession, whereas
That's right, yeah.
how come Suraj is studying civil engineering? Is it the
He's got to
curry pressure?
He's got to figure it out yet. He's got some time to figure it out. He's going to finish the degree. He's going to work in civil engineering. He's going to figure out that's that violin and composition is what he really wants to do. And then he'll figure out and he'll come and join me.
I'll come to the commercial aspect of music industry at all, but let's deep dive into your background, your childhood, your Indian roots. Just take us through how your upbringing was contributed to your profession journey as a musician and as a lead orchestrist.
So born and brought up in Sydney. From initially in Blacktown. So my parents migrated in 1993. And then 4 years later, I was born in Blacktown. We lived in Blacktown for a little while. And then when we moved to Eastwood, in the northern suburbs of Sydney, I met my violin teacher there. He was running a strings program at the school. And yeah, I just liked the sound of the violin and came somewhat naturally to me. And I just kept at it and it was fun. And then I started to play in orchestras like the Sydney Youth Orchestra and Australian Youth Orchestra. And these orchestras are like a fantastic group of young, talented musicians that come together and play like phenomenally. And it was just so inspiring to be part of that. And so that I caught the bug for music through that. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to play with the Australian World Orchestra, which is not just a professional orchestra. It is like the elite, like top of the top orchestras that bring the best Australian musicians from around the world to Australia, and they all play together. It's a very rare and logistically incredible orchestra. So I played with them, and they toured to India, which is where I got the inspiration to see if we can combine our roots, our Indian roots. Watching Bollywood movies.
They toured to India.
They toured to India in 2018.
Yeah.
So I joined them as an academy player, and it was very nice because I had my cousin also come to the concert in Chennai, and it was great to be in touch with the motherland, but in an orchestra way. So it's a way. It was an avenue through my passion for playing music.
Yeah.
But then also connecting with my roots. Growing up, I'd go for violin lessons, and I would play in orchestras, and then come home and watch Badshah with Shah Rukh Khan, all the great songs.
So, can I assume that you were not at all good in study?
I was pretty good, but I wasn't. I took a lot of shortcuts. Yeah, I found the easy way out, and I had some tricks.
The easy way, the jugaad.
What's that?
Jugaad. Jugaad is a Indian Hindi term for finding shortcuts.
Yeah,
especially for famous in North India.
Yeah.
I believe your roots are in
the
South and Bangalore.
Mysore, actually.
Mysore.
Yeah, near
wow,
Bangalore.
Lovely place.
Yeah, so we're proud Kannadiga, and we speak Kannada at home. But
do you speak Kannada at home?
Yeah.
Are you fluent?
Yeah.
Say something in Kannada.
ನನಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, and ತುಂಬಾ ಇಷ್ಟ ಮಾತಾಡಕ್ಕೆ.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Kannada ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ.
Oh, ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. That's good. That's more Kannada than most people.
I lived in Bangalore for close to 7 years.
Yeah, right.
So I could catch up to these 3 words.
Yeah. That'll get you by in Bangalore. Yeah.
At least I can win the bargain.
Yeah, that's
we'll
right.
try at least.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're from Gujarat, right?
I am basically from Gujarat.
Yeah.
Left country itself in 2013. Initially, I was here in Australia for little less than a year, 11 months. Then we moved to US for some time. And 2018, we came back to Australia for good. Right. I have my daughter born in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's when we decided, we were on visa, H-1B.
Yeah.
And we decided that we need to make permanent move to some country. Yeah. That's how we chose Australia.
So you didn't choose the US?
Australia chose me.
Okay.
I wanted to stay in US.
Yeah.
But being on a visa and H-1B, especially there's some US law which says that rule of diversity. It's a 200 years old law. According to that, only 7% of each diversity can apply for the green card, which is we call permanent resident in Australia.
Wow.
So what happened is, being Indian and Chinese are the largest, diaspora in the US. The wait time for getting the green card, there are 2 terms: approval of green card versus receiving actual green card.
Yeah, right.
So even if your green card is approved, which is in my case is yes, getting the actual green card in a normal circumstances can take up to 75 years. Or at some time it
75
takes,
years.
No, surprise is yet to come.
Oh, okay.
Yet in some cases it takes 150 years. So technically speaking, you will never get it.
Okay, yeah, right. Is it because the waiting list is so long?
Yeah, waiting list, and there is a mathematics going on.
Okay.
Some weird formula.
Yeah.
According to rule of diversity.
Right.
And that's where we landed up in Australia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I mean, that's good. I mean, the US just loses fantastic citizens, but yeah, the rules and policies that they have going on there is very tricky, and it's at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of rules to dissuade people from entering the country. Yeah, they've got a few issues, but Australia is fantastic. I mean,
absolutely.
What made what was the factor for you that made Australia choose you?
So we decided to apply for permanent residence for 2 countries. One is Australia and Canada. Eventually, I got both the permanent residency. The only thing which was different for Australia is while I was in US, I got my job in Australia.
Right. Yeah.
While sitting in US, so which was triggering point for me to come down to Australia.
Yeah.
And I lived here for at least a year, so I know bit about the geography and places and people.
It was, and people. The networks are so important. There's a huge Indian population in Canada, especially Toronto. And there's a growing pretty big Indian population in Sydney as well. But the salary in Australia is quite high, I think, compared to other countries. And the quality of life is just amazing.
Quality of life is something, which always attracts, I think, most immigrants. And I have seen in Australia and in US, we have third or fourth generation Indian.
Yeah, right.
Whereas in Australia, it's just, I think, first generation like you or second generation. So that brings my another curious question is, most Desi kids, first generation kids who were born and brought up here, I'm emphasizing on most, so I'm not generalizing it. Just to make sure. I don't want to people make angry. So most Desi kids are go into they're average in study, especially Australian Indian kids. And the profession, which is quite funny, they choose most of the real estate agent.
That's definitely the big trend these days. I would definitely say that a career as a musician, if you grow up in India, because I always ask myself, how would I have turned out if I grew up in India? Or if I was born in India, grew up in India, probably would be doing something very different.
Do you think if you grew up in India, and still being a violinist or having orchestra which you have today, would that make some difference into your professional career?
Look, the social pressure in India is just out of control. It's so big, and already young people tend to care, and I do care what people think of me and what kind of profession you have. It wasn't an easy decision to switch to music. It's a very unstable career path, and it's you're only as good as your last gig. So in that respect, it's a lot, but it was a lot. I feel like it's a lot easier to do that in somewhere like Australia, which is, I think, generally a lot more accepting, and the pay is generally higher for musicians here. But like I said, if I grew up in India, who knows? The one interesting thing though is my ancestry. My grandfather comes from a town called Rudrapatna, in the vicinity of Hassan in South India.
Hassan, I know.
And that is a city. It's a town that is famous, in India, for producing artists and particularly violinists. Rudrapatna. Okay. So my grandfather, is from that town, and they all emigrated out of that town and moved to Mysore or Bangalore. But there's all these famous artists, musicians, poets as well that come from this village. And there's also a temple that is in the shape of a sitar, I believe, in Rudrapatna as well. So when we visited there, we saw this, and there were plaques and names of people like S. Nagaraj, which is my initial. It would have stood for something else, but a lot of people who had the same name that I did, the same last name, and there were all these pictures of the artists on the lampposts. So here is a town that really celebrates their artists like no other town I've ever seen. I mean, I haven't been to that many places in the world, but where are you going to find pictures of a veena player, a sitar player, a violin player on the lampposts? So it was a fascinating town.
Is it safe to assume the Nagaraj family tree is having the musical roots?
Yeah, I don't know. I like to believe in those kind of things, but it's hard to say. But the violin did kind of come naturally to me. And I've always sort of wanted to play with other people and bring people together. I think that's what makes life, amazing. And so that's how this orchestra and kind of came about.
It's funny because the trend I have observed, especially with the South Indian families, is they don't keep their last name consistent. They just use their father name or the location where they belongs to as your last name.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think Nagaraj is something. It's
my dad's first name.
Oh,
yeah, that's my dad's first name, and my dad's last name is his dad's first name. So it's like that.
I see.
But I do have cousins who have their last name like Hanasoge.
Or based on the place.
Yeah, based on the place as well.
I know that.
So it's both. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, I love going back to Mysore and catching up with my cousins and just hanging out with the kids on the street. When on average, about 3 to 4 years. Every 3 to 4 years.
Every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So was it quite frequent when you were growing up?
It was a bit more frequent. It was probably about once every 2 years. But I always loved going back. The community was different. The food was different. The water tastes different. And I was like more comfortable walking around barefoot. Everything was just like more.
Water is different, but not for your stomach.
Water tastes different. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you get a little bit sick as well. But I love playing like cricket with the kids on the street.
Yeah.
And yeah, just interacting with all the animals. And every time I go, it's a wonderful time. And so I went recently in January this year and met a little cousin of mine who had been born. Like I didn't even know that she existed, and then there she was. So yeah, it's always nice, and that kind of level of community you don't really get in. I didn't really get that here in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of like when you leave India to set up a new life in a different country, that's the kind of thing that you miss. And so, but it's always nice to go back and reconnect with everyone.
Going back to the musical journey, what was the first encounter with violin, particular as an instrument? Because choosing violin as an instrument is a bit of a decision making task, because you don't encounter a lot of people who violin player, and I'm sure there are orchestras in West, especially in US, UK,
and Europe, all
in
over
Europe,
yeah,
all of there.
It's big, yeah.
But especially in Australia, it's not a kind of a big buzz around that specific instrument or as an orchestra.
Yeah, that's right.
So what was the first encounter, and how did you choose only a violin? Because if you are inclined towards orchestra or that kind of ecosystem, you could have choose harp.
That's true. Yeah,
you could have chosen
any instrument.
Any other instrument.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So my dad asked me one day, "Do you want to play violin or flute?" And pick one. And
did you aware about any of those first?
I was. So we had an instrument demo. So my very first encounter with violin, I was at school. It was like I was about 8 years old, and they demonstrated all the instruments. So like trumpet, and horn, like trumpet, flute, violin, and so they played violin. And to be honest, nothing really appealed about it. I just kind of like picked it. So I remember walking to school one day, and Dad asked me, Sagar, do you want to play violin or flute? Pick something. You got to pick something.
Yeah.
He wanted me to be busy, and then I just said, okay, fine, violin, whatever. And then I started with violin. And on my very first lesson, when I picked up the violin, the bridge, so a part of the instrument, it broke and it fell off. And then my teacher said, well, that's a good way to start. Yeah, great start. Good job. And then I said, oh, no, I felt so embarrassed. And like I still remember that to this day. And it was a good start. So it worked out pretty well. But yeah, look, violin is something that I've always considered, like, do I want to keep doing it? Do I, is this the path for me? And it's not actually for me, like, the violin itself. Like it is, like I do like the way the instrument looks and feels, and when I play it's nice. So for me, I did actually take a break from playing violin for about 3 months when I was like about 15, because I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. There was I had to kind of choose between studies or music.
So you had a breakup with violin?
I did. Yeah. It was thankfully it wasn't that messy. So I had a bit of a breakup.
You moved on?
Yeah,
no, not really.
I couldn't move on, because I came to this one realization where I was like, well, this is the thing that I'm like really good at. Everyone has like one or two things that they're really, really good at, and it kind of shapes your identity a little bit as well. So if you let go of that, it's really hard. So
after you break up with the violin, did you try any other instrument?
No, I didn't cheat. I didn't move around. Yeah, I didn't play around.
All right. This is the moment. What is your relationship status at the moment?
Definitely committed. Definitely in a long-term committed relationship. Oh no, I thought you meant to my violin.
No.
Okay.
I was about to say sorry, girls.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No. It's definitely it's complicated. So
complicated.
Yeah.
Can we say situationship? It's quite a Gen Z.
You know what? I've heard that term being said like more recently, and. Yeah, I think
don't be modest. Sagar.
I think I'm in a bit of a situationship at the moment.
Okay, that's a loyal answer. That's the honest answer.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you continue what you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say I'm in a long-term committed relationship to my violin. So
okay, all right. Yeah. So 8 years of age when you first encountered with the violin.
Yeah.
What was the aha moment for you to think that now you started becoming serious about playing violin, gradually growing up to a stage where you can think that, okay, this can be, my profession where I can, start earning money from it.
Yeah.
What was that moment? Or it was gradual, nothing was overnight?
There was a moment, but it wasn't an aha moment. It was my dad saying, so I wanted to, after I'd been learning for about 7 years, I'd kind of reached the end of my exams. So every year you do violin, you do a certain grade. So grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, all the way to grade 8. That's the last exam. And then you do like a diploma after that. And so this is the grading system that we have for music in Australia. And when I reached the highest one, my dad, I was kind of being like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, I just like playing with people. I like playing in orchestras. I like playing with other artists. And my dad says, why don't you teach? Why don't you teach music? So teaching was one of the avenues for income. And I was like, no, I couldn't teach. I'm still a kid. And I'm still 15, 16. He's like, my dad was like, why not? You're in the best position to teach. And that kind of why not is that never left me. So I was 15 when I heard that, and that why not still sticks with me today. So I use that for everything.
So age of 15, did you start teaching?
I started teaching, yeah.
Wow.
And so because I was like, I've never taught before. I've never done this before. And my dad was like, why not? Who's going to stop you?
You know what? There's a famous saying. One of the writer in India. It's about the generation gap. When you said that I'm too young for teaching kids. That reminds me that he said that every iPhone in the world at the moment, 21st century, every iPhone brings a new generation.
Right.
So back in the days in 80s or 70s, the generation gap was 20 years. Now the generation gap is iPhone to iPhone.
Right.
So it's never, you're never too young, never too old for doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic decision to get into a profession as a teacher, to start growing as a teacher and as a professional artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from there, age of 15, you started violin, and you said you studied completely into music. Yeah. So what is your current musical degree?
It's not quite that straightforward. So I was teaching violin and playing. So we played at weddings, we played at events. So that
you
kind of
played
thing.
Wedding?
Yeah. So that's what I do. So
as a single piece or?
Sometimes, as a solo violin, but normally as a string quartet. So that's 2 violins, viola, and cello. So that in Western weddings, usually like Christian weddings, they have them as the bride walks down the aisle. They play Pachelbel's canon, something like that. And so that's quite popular. But always, it was the path that was very, it came to me naturally, but it was something that I fought with a lot. I was like, I don't think I should be a musician. I should go to university. I should study something, that's proper. So then I studied I started with business, finance. I did that for 1.5 semesters. Didn't like that. Then I went and studied music at the Sydney Conservatorium. I did that for 1 semester, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the way it was institutionalized, and they told you to play only a certain way and do only a certain thing. So I'm not a very good student. So then I left that as well, and then I went into psychology, and I stuck through that psychology degree. So I did my honors in that, and then I was doing my training, my provisional training as a psychologist, and then did that for 2 years, and then I left that as well, and then I went back to music. So here I am. So I'm, in terms of committing to something, for an extended period of time, I'm always evaluating, is this something that I want to keep doing? I treat every day like it could be my last. And when I was working in the psychology job, I was working for a company that I didn't quite like the way I was conducting the business and treating clients, and especially who are on disability pension as well. The way that we were, I guess doing business was not the way I'd envisioned I wanted to practice psychology. So Is
it around the ethical?
Around ethical side of things. And look, the way to make money, I guess, in health is to keep people
Tell me more about
for
it.
Services. Yeah. So we have targets. We have targets we need to reach, and
being psychologist.
Being in any sort of profession, because it's treated as a business. You have KPIs, targets you have to hit. You have to see a certain amount of clients. You have to see do a certain amount of hours, put in like billings for your company, and what that was kind of doing was it was influencing us to kind of take like shortcuts in that, and I just wasn't, I guess, enjoying the work I was doing every day. I was kind of waking up being like, oh man, I just don't want to do this, and that got really bad after I came back from India. Mm-hmm. So I went to India for a holiday in early January this year, and that was a really good time to step away from work and reflect. And then I came back and I was like, I want to do something that really engages with people and brings people together, and music like was the answer for that. And I always thought that you had to go through a linear path, a college, a safe, structured environment to find out like what, to get a proper job or do a proper thing. But, like you do with the podcasts, or like you do with any kind of venture, there isn't really like a set defined path. You kind of create it as you go, and you kind of do it. So I told myself, why not just do it? And you're in the best position to do it. So with me and my brother, we thought like, okay, look, we're in a unique position here where we have training in Western classical music, but we have, a good touch with Indian music as well, and the Indian scene. And we know how orchestras work. We know how music works. And we know that people in the second generation, the Indians, expats living in Sydney and Australia and globally as well, want to see this new genre, this new generation. What can it produce? And so we thought like, let's put that together and see where that can take us. Why not?
Yeah. So you study psychology and you study a bit of a music.
Yeah.
And you have a fair bit of trip to India.
Yeah.
Have you decided or given a thought to study music in India?
Yeah.
Because there are some premium schools like KM.
Yes.
From
in Chennai,
Rahman.
Yeah. So I actually know a couple of people from that school. It's something I want to do, but I believe in kind of learning on the job, doing it as I go. It's the harder way to do it. But I think you gain so much knowledge and experience from putting yourself in the deep end. It's definitely not comfortable. It's not something that I would probably recommend for everybody. But for me, it's what I find works the best. I find that when I have to put on a concert, when I have to learn a certain piece or song for a performance, that is when I find that I'm the most like motivated to do it. Because all throughout school, I'm done with exams. So many exams, so much homework. And I understand that the point of it is to train you to meet deadlines and to prove something, but
just to prepare for the worst.
Yeah. But I think the real world is not really. I mean, there are a lot of tests out there in the real world, but I think that if you just show value, if you provide a platform for people to come together and to enjoy life, that's what it's all about. So I find more motivating for me than an exam or a deadline or a panel jury. That's how they do exams for music students.
You mentioned about you just learned how the orchestra works and everything. So was that learning came from your different experiences with the Australian Orchestra, joining them as a one of the member?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so okay. I did about 5 years of youth orchestras. So youth orchestra is like kids from the age of like 5 all the way up to 25. And it's a fantastic learning environment. And all you do is you play the top symphonies. You play like Tchaikovsky symphonies, Mozart, Beethoven, all of these top like Western classical composers, Wagner. You play these symphonies in these massive, halls and groups with all these other kids. And it was the one thing I would look forward to like the most every week. So I'd have school, and on Saturday you'd have sport, and then on Sunday you'd have music. You'd have these. So
orchestras. You have this exposure to one of the finest orchestra across Australia and Sydney. Do you resonate, or do you look forward to certain musicians or certain piece of music, be it from 18th century or something, you want to recreate something like this, you want to resonate something like this, or you want to go in a very, very specific genre?
I want to provide something new that's reflective of our generation. So we're second generation Australian Indians, but I want to do it in a format that is like structured, that's recognizable. So I don't want to just play the established symphonies already, because you have Sydney Symphony, you have
hundreds of people playing it.
Los Angeles, Berlin Philharmonic, all of these wonderful orchestras are already playing this music. We can do that. That'd be fantastic. But what's something unique that only we can provide? And that is something amazing that my brother Suraj has done. He's created those arrangements of these popular Indian songs for full symphony orchestra. So that is unique, and that taps into what I'm very passionate about, which is bringing an orchestra together. It's a bit of a logistical task, but I think a lot of people in Sydney, a lot of musicians want to do that. They want to come together and play. Like, people are putting their hand up, like, pick me, I want to play in this amazing orchestra. It's fantastic to play music with them. And so it's so that having that kind of format and that orchestra is, like, for me, very rewarding.
So you still want to create something fusion with the South Asian and Bollywood tunes, and add bit of flavor of orchestra music, and instruments used in orchestra music. Is that something you intend to produce as a fresh piece?
Yeah, absolutely. We are in our next year and the year after, we have in our plans to commission unique work for the orchestra. That's Suraj's task to compose that. And we want to incorporate as many like Australian sounds and Australian instruments as possible, with the Indian instruments and the Indian sound as well, to see if we can really create some kind of like new genre, like new blend. But yeah, it takes a lot of work.
Was there an inspiration from a orchestra who is doing similar thing, like orchestra being in West? From the South Asian, and producing those fusion with the picking Bollywood BGMs or music and adding the orchestra flavor to it?
Yeah. There is one orchestra, the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. They're based in the UK. So they had a concert with Sonu Nigam, and Sonu Nigam was singing the songs of like Mohammed Rafi, and the orchestra was doing the BGM, the background for that, with in that full symphony context. So that was really like something that was really like great and cool. We saw that and we said, okay, we can do something like that, but we can do it for the best like songs throughout the decades, not just one singer. And it's something that hadn't been done in Sydney as well. So that was kind of why not? Come on, why not just do it? So yeah, that was the incentive for us to start that. Yeah,
I think in 2014 or 15, I don't remember the exact year. For the first time, I have seen Berkeley doing the same thing, like picking up all the A.R. Rahman song, Tamil and Hindi, and produce a bit of fusion. They had used vocal a lot, but they have produced fusion of picking up the certain Bollywood BGMs or songs, adding the local vocals, and I think 50 piece of orchestra to that. That was my first encounter when I saw that this is something new. Like I have never seen, at least. People might have done it, but I have never encountered. That was the day, and 2023, I first saw. That was unfortunate of me that I could not even got to know about your first, concert. So fast forward to your latest concert, which happened in August.
It's happened in August. Yes.
So that was in August. 60 piece, you said?
60 piece.
60 piece of orchestra. Okay. Take us through that journey. Whose idea was that? Don't tell Suraj. Everything you're putting on Suraj's name, and I think if he's listening, then I'm not sure what his reaction will be. But whose idea was that? And what was the production value look like in both in terms of a logical arrangement of connecting with people, connecting with individual players, and of course the commercial aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one day we were in a pub. Me and Suraj were in a pub with a friend who helped us produce.
Which pub?
The Mosman pub outside the Hayden Orpheum Palace after we watched a movie there in Mosman. That was fantastic. And we said, look, we want to do a full symphony orchestra.
Sorry, which year this was in?
This is early this year.
Early this year?
Yep,
okay.
Yep. So after I came back from India actually.
Yeah.
Which kind of actually probably ties into why I was feeling very demotivated with psychology. But anyway, because this whole new thing was coming and it was like taking up all my attention, and I'm like, why am I doing this other job? So this idea, like, it took off like that. We were talking about it.
Whose idea was that?
It was a combination of me and Suraj.
No,
I'd like
don't
to say
tell me honestly.
So,
Suraj's idea or your idea?
Look, I posed the idea.
Okay.
But Suraj did the work.
Okay. We'll find out when Suraj comes back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you get him, he'll say something else. We posed the idea in the pub, and then it took off like that. And then we got all the singers together, and Suraj started calling up because he had contacts in the bands, because he would do a lot of community concerts.
So he was also with you in the bands, like.
No, so Suraj actually was doing the bands more than I was. I was more into the Western side. I was doing more orchestra, quartet, chamber music. But Suraj was he has his own YouTube channel called Sagar Nagaraj Violin, where he plays a lot of the Bollywood music with violin, and he's very passionate into that. He was always arranging music for that. So he was a popular violinist that all the Indian bands in Sydney were asking for. He's in demand for their concerts. So he had all these contacts of singers and band musicians, as well as sitar players and tabla players like this. So because I wasn't as in touch with the Indian music scene as he was. So he started calling them. We got together for a meeting. Everyone loved the idea. Mm-hmm. It had never been done before. We knew how to do it. We just needed their support and their involvement. And so we started to get brainstorming. Then we created the posters and all the marketing media for that. And we put it out there. It was really scary because no one had really done that before. We'd seen what they'd done in England and in Berkeley as well. But actually doing it yourself and, where's the money going to come from kind of thing. That's a big risk.
That is my next question, actually.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'd put like a bit of my personal savings
so
into
your
it.
Psychological
that's right,
profession paid for your musical journey.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I moved back home last year. So I was like living in an apartment for the last couple of years. But then last year I moved back home and decided to start saving for a deposit for a house.
That is the first priority for all Desi kids.
That's right. I was following the path, right? Yeah, I have an older sister. She did the same thing. That's what my dad did, and this is the kind of the path you're meant to take. Yeah, it's the formula. It works, So I was like, saving up this cash, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting a bit itchy. Pockets are getting itchy. What do I spend it on? But yeah, so I used a bit of my personal savings to get the ball rolling. But it was all in investment. So that was good because then we made sure it was a success. So we really made sure that everyone was on board because everyone's getting paid. Everyone is, we stick to the times as well. We're very strict with our schedules. We value everyone's time and everyone's efforts as much as possible. And we put on the best show that we can. So getting all the musicians. So I play in the Willoughby Symphony Orchestra, which is like an orchestra in Sydney. So I have a lot of contacts through that. So I pulled most of the Western Symphony Orchestra together. Right. And Suraj was able to pull a lot of the Indian musicians together and the singers. And so, we were able to, pull that, together. And a lot of people have respect for Suraj as well. He's a fantastic composer. He's a fantastic musician. So when he says, look, I want to do this, people really listen and okay, I think we can do that because if if he didn't have the track record, people would be like, whatever, man, you keep dreaming. So this was something that we were really able to get a lot of people to support, and a lot of people showed us a lot of support for this because it was something that brought Australians and Indians together. And it gave everyone like that common goal and purpose to thrive for. And music is something a lot of people are really passionate about. And yeah, a lot of people were saying like, oh, Sagar, you don't have to pay me, you don't have to do this. I'm like, no, like this is a job. Like you got to treat it like a job. We respect your time and your passion and your interests. So we want to make sure that people feel valued, and we do value them. Like there are artists, and without them, we're nothing. So we have to, really make sure that they feel valued, and we respect that. So, and it also means that we can understand how viable it is in the future. If we don't pay our musicians, or if you don't have a proper budget and do it logistically the right way, then you're not going to find out exactly how possible this venture really is. So it's been a fantastic learning experience for me, because I've never really done a lot of marketing before. I've never really done a lot of investment or, all these ventures. And I haven't really done this entrepreneurial kind of thing before. So this is the first big sort of test for me. And it's still a test because we have another concert coming up, and we have all the same things, go again. But now we have the content on our channel, the Australian Indian Orchestra. We have the videos up there, so people can now really see what we do and how we bring Indian and Australian music together. So yeah, it's tough, but it all started with why not? Why not do it? Like everything around you has been done by was the idea of someone not that much smarter than yourself. Yeah. Like every thing you see around you.
Was it? Were you nervous? And of course, this last time concert was quite a massive hit.
Yeah.
What was your B plan if things doesn't go well? Have you thought about it?
We didn't really have a plan B.
That's a good thing.
Kind of had to work. Yeah. So
it had to work.
Sometimes it was overwhelming. But we had a lot of support. I had my family. And we had the artists as well. So I had a lot of people like talking about it, and the Indian community is fantastic. They're very supportive. And when they saw what we were doing, all it was getting the reach, like letting people know what we were doing. It was really hard because we hadn't done it before. So we had nothing to show them.
In fact, nobody has done this before.
Yeah.
You were the first time who he brought Australian Indian Orchestra with a bit of an Indian flavor, and an orchestra beat into it.
That's right.
So you brought very good aspect about the money. I'm a photographer, and a lot of the request I receive is hey, we have this big concert coming up. Can you do it to support it?
Yeah.
So, what roughly it means, you will not get money, you will get exposure.
Yeah.
Classic. And I feel that, this kind of work, it is now obsolete even in India.
Yeah. Really?
Even in India also, people don't say that, okay, you'll get exposure. Just come and attend this and do it for free.
Right.
What was your such encounters where somebody approaches you and says, hey, maybe your relative, maybe your friends,
a lot of Indians, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the exploitation of artists and media people is like the list goes on and on. It's been happening since the very beginning. I mean, it still happens to this day because it's a very tricky line you have to tread. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of relationships that you form. The arts is generally an industry that relies on connections. Like a lot of industries rely on connections, but you can't automate the arts. You can't. It always relies on human connections, which involves politics. So in terms of getting like the exposure and getting artists, can you come and play in this concert for exposure? The rehearsal is from for 3 hours, but it goes for 5 hours, and the concert doesn't start on time. It ends really late. This is kind of like what we come to expect from Indian, or not even just Indian, but like ethnic, ethnic community groups who are, I guess, not as strict with the time. Maybe there's some kind of sentiment there, like, oh, you're doing it for the love of it, for the passion of it. So why should
But passion doesn't pay bills.
Passion doesn't pay the bills. That's right. So it's a very tricky thing having to commercialize the arts and commercialize something you do. And what I find is that when you start to introduce money and financial things, you push certain people away, but you attract other people as well. So when one door closes, another door can open. So it's not the end of the world. And but you can also attract the wrong kind of people as well. So it's not just the money, but they have to be aligned with your vision and your values. And first and foremost, that is what needs to come in place. But there also needs to be that financial aspect to support your work, because it's work at the end of the day. And if you feel unpaid, or you don't feel like you were paid enough, you don't feel like you're paid what you're worth, it can be quite hurtful, because as humans, we equate financial, money is just numbers on a screen or in a paper, but we equate that to our own self-worth. So if you're a musician or an artist and you're not getting paid for what you're doing, it's kind of like your art is meaningless or worthless. Which is not the case, but
most people says, where artist gets inspiration. Of course, the work of, the other legendary artist also brings inspiration, but commercial value, money is the biggest inspiration for any artist. And it has to be. Otherwise, what's the point of being a professional musician where you have, hundreds of people who are doing it just for the passion?
Absolutely, yeah.
So profession brings certain, uniformity, certain disciplines to what you deliver. And of course, the long-term engagement to, your co-artist, other people which you are getting support from. So commercial value is absolutely important. And with that, I'm not saying that all the producers are like that. There are producers who says that, hey, I have this gig, I want to hire you, but I have, little less budget. Can you do it? That's where the exposure part comes into the picture. Even if, my charge is $1,000 per day, but, since this is a new thing, okay, I'll do it for 500.
Right.
So that kind of, that calls, exposure. Where you are paying something. You're not completely saying that, oh, I'll not pay anything. You just come for the exposure.
Yeah, it's a
exposure
transaction.
Doesn't pay my bill.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't pay the bill, so why would you even bother with getting that attention? Also, when you introduce financial things, you introduce that professionalism, and it's a transaction. You raise the expectations. If you're getting something for free, they could show up like 1 hour late. They could take like 3 photos. You're not paying me, so what's the point? But then you're risking the relationship on the line. Usually, I think with people like that, if you explain to them why you're worth what your price is and what they're getting out of it, then you can
people do understand.
Yeah, people do understand. And then there's usually there's some money floating around somewhere. It's just not for you because unfortunately the arts is like not considered a necessity or like a bare essential to produce an event. Even though arts is being the biggest commercial industry, still it's doesn't come under necessity, which is it's weird. Yeah,
it's just weird and ironical. But anyways, okay. So your last concert, what was the commercial production value? Was the last concert?
So everything ended up being about $40,000 to produce, and including we had, but with that we had a lot of donors, we had sponsors, and we had great ticket sales as well. But because it was the first one, we did give quite a few complimentary tickets out, and we did just to raise that awareness and have certain people in the building. But that was the kind of hit that I was willing to take in order to build. Including videography as well, and the videos that we have that we're pushing out now. That was a hit I was willing to take in order to get it off the ground. You have to be able to bear some kind of loss, and a lot of investors would know this as well, in order to get something off the ground. Because why should anyone believe in your product or your what your service if you haven't done it before or have nothing to show for it? Now that we've done it, now that we've got the videos, now that we can show people what we're doing, it's not easy, but it's easier to show people what we're doing
comparatively
and to get people
smooth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with that mindset, with knowing that, you're not going to come out of this, with cashed up with a lot of profits, it was fine for me to put that like on the line. And Suraj was doing a lot of like unpaid work. I was doing a lot of unpaid work as well, which you have to do in order to bring something
up to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Just to establish yourself, your profession and your existence.
That's right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But when you reach to a certain stage where, people knows you, and your work speaks, that's where you start, converting into a commercial value. Even if it is start with $1, it's just fine, but it has to have a commercial value to it.
Yeah. And at the moment, the commercial value is mostly ticket sales. But we're looking at like merchandising as well. That's another option. But yeah, commercializing the arts is a bit of a tricky thing. A lot of people move towards like parties and events. That's where like a lot of the cash is. They do shows as well. Whatever is the most popular, whatever is in demand, that's what we have to do. But classical music is always something that it's a bit like more refined. So that means it doesn't necessarily appeal to the wider public all the time. Pieces like Meredolna but actually a piece like Meredolna is a good example because it is quite an Indian classical piece, but it is featured in like a popular like Bollywood movie. So classical music can appeal to the general masses, but just frankly, on a commercial level, it just doesn't compete with pop music or dance music.
So you have to rely on a lot on the Bollywood style music?
We do. But we do it in an orchestra, like a classical way, because that's what we know. That's our art form. That's how we do it. But also B, it's a fresh, like different way to present that music. So that's actually quite exciting for us as well. We don't want to just do purely classical. We want to combine that. We want to combine what people are familiar with, what speaks to them, what they like. But we also want them to to see what we do and what we like, which is playing in that classical way. So it's just a new way to experience it. And so the other ways are streaming. You can stream your services. And you can accept donations and sponsorships.
Any specific sponsor you want to thank from Sydney?
Yeah. There's a few like private donors that we have, but Saroni Roy has been very good with it in terms of helping us promote the orchestra to certain key individuals. But also Sheila Dillon, big time for our first concert. Sheila Dillon is a like marketing lady. She's like a marketing guru at a company, and so she's been like absolutely fantastic. So Sheila, thank you so much for your work. And it's honestly like a collective effort from everyone to bring this up. So we try and pay everyone who's involved with this orchestra because we do value them. But there's a lot of favors and unpaid kindnesses that we don't forget and that have like helped to establish what this is. But it's a journey, and it's going to continue. And so there's always going to be some unpaid thing happening, but it's some things you got to do for the love of it. You can't equate everything to a financial.
There has to be
figure.
A fine line.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in the last concert you were the lead violinist.
Yep.
And Suraj was an arranger.
Yeah, and conductor. Yeah.
Conductor.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the two?
So an arranger or composer is someone who writes the music, and the conductor is the person at the front of the orchestra waving the baton, the stick, telling people when to come in, how to play the music, how to interpret the music. Suraj actually didn't want to be the conductor in the beginning, or he didn't know he could.
What was the process, decision-making process, that who will be the lead violinist, who will be the conductor?
I was going to be the lead violinist because I was always the lead violinist from the beginning. And that was because I also knew how to play some songs in the Indian style. So we could trust me to play that authentically. There are also some violin solos as well that were written in the music, so that I was going to play. Suraj, though, didn't know he was going to be the conductor, and we were just having a walk through the Botanic Gardens here in Sydney, And I told him, you have to conduct this, right? We can't get someone else to interpret the music, because Suraj had never conducted before. He had never conducted an orchestra ever. That was his first time.
How was the surprise taken by him then?
He was like, okay. He took a few days to process it, and he was like, okay, well, I have to do it, because he knew the music inside out. He had written all the notes for every member of the 60-piece orchestra. He had like handwritten on the computer, all of the notations for every single Western musician, because we have to read the music on the notes in order to play it like authentically and perfectly. Whereas the Indian musicians, they would play by ear and just, through knowing the music. But all the Western musicians, they have to look at the sheet music. So Suraj had to write out the parts for every single musician, sometimes having to listen to a song, particularly one, I think, Soja Soja, by A.R. Rahman, he had to listen to that over 100 times to really notate every single note that the brass, the horns and the trumpets had to play. He had to listen very carefully for every single sound and notate that so that they could play it pitch perfectly to what A.R. Rahman had written.
A significant effort goes into every song, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, AIO is not something that can just pop up, and every time someone says, oh, can you come and bring the orchestra here or there? It's like, oh, okay, all right, let's figure out all the logistics, all the things that need to happen.
So you had a lot of the white folks or non-Indian folks, most major,
and Chinese
and
folks, Lebanese and Greek and all these different ethnicities.
So how did you convey this Indian music, or they just rely on notes?
But
they had to listen it at least once, isn't it?
No. A lot of people didn't even listen to it once. They just played what was written, and that's how good Suraj's arrangements are, and that's how good Western music notation can be. If someone like Suraj or an arranger or a composer out there listens to a song and writes out the notes, it can be reproduced pitch perfect to the original.
So how many days did you rehearse this for?
We rehearsed it for 1 week.
1 week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
1 week. Yeah. 60 pieces of orchestra.
We had 3 rehearsals. We each were 3 hours each. And we had sound check for a couple hours, and then the concert on the same day. So everyone was called for 4 days.
Right.
Yeah, they had to come for 4 different occasions.
I think I have seen you had 3 vocalists.
4
vocalists?
Yeah. So one vocalist, Rahani, she was also playing percussion as well. So she was doubling as a musician in the orchestra and a singer.
Yeah. Okay. So all of them are South Asian?
Yeah.
All vocalists?
So our singer Vikas, he's from Bangalore. Rucha is from Ahmedabad. Rahani is from Punjab. And Avijit Sarkar. I actually don't know where Avijit is from. I think he's...
Bengal. Kolkata.
Is he from Kolkata?
No, based on the surname, I can figure
Sarkar.
it out.
Okay, yeah, potentially. Sorry, Avijit, if you're watching, I need to find out where you're from. Yeah.
All right. So, was it a bit of a journey for you to convince about this 60 people to come and play for the orchestra, for the rehearsals for 1 week, and was it a bit of a tricky task?
For some people it was, for some people it wasn't. Most of them were my friends, so they trusted in me that it was going to be good, and they trusted in Suraj as well. But a lot of people who didn't know what Indian music was like, they had to go a bit on blind faith that this is how the Indian music would sound, this is how the orchestra would go. A lot of the musicians in the first rehearsal were telling us, Sagar, I didn't expect it to be this good. This is actually really, really good. I was expecting it to be really not good, not well organized. What
was the turnout in the August concert?
500. It was a sold out concert.
Sold out?
So yeah,
oh wow.
Yeah. Wow. So the audience were incredible. But yeah, the musicians were like, we can't wait for the next one. We love what you're doing. Yeah, it was great. And just seeing, that's the beautiful thing about Australia, is that it's so multicultural, especially in Sydney, that a lot of people are really very aware of other cultures, and they jump at the opportunity. So some people were jumping at the opportunity to play in an Indian orchestra. Wow, Indian music. I love Bollywood. As soon as Aussies think of Bollywood, they're thinking of the dancing lengas and the big Bollywood numbers, and which is fair enough. I mean, that's what India's major export is to the world. but they don't quite know the classical side of it. I mean, some musicians did, and they were excited to get into that, and they loved that. Like when we had Abhijit Dan on the tabla doing his 5/8, 11/16, takidimi rhythms on the tabla, like people were going like, whoa, they were like that. This is that's the musician face when they like something like. Yeah, that was nice. So we saw a lot of people grooving to that in the rehearsal, and those moments, that is like what I live for. Like when people are enjoying the music that they're playing in, and I'm enjoying the music too. But when I see other people enjoying the music that we are playing together, it makes it like 50 times better. It just like makes everything so good, and I could just be doing. If I could do that every day, that would be like amazing. But
that was a concert in August, and you have upcoming concert on Diwali.
Yeah. So that's our Diwali concert on the 10th of November. And so that's going to be at the Chatswood Concourse. And we're going to be doing A.R. Rahman's Jai Ho with the full symphony orchestra.
Guys, please note it down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so 10th of November, 7 p.m. at the Chatswood Concourse. So we're going to be doing, so Jai Ho, but we're also going to be doing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, with Indian instruments as well.
Was it in Lord of the Rings? No, Star Wars. That was in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was in Star Wars, but it's in so much media. Star Wars is
One of the scene in Star Wars has Beethoven Symphony.
Does it? Okay, I might need to rewatch it. I actually don't know Star Wars that well.
I'm
a big Harry Potter fan,
sure.
but not Star Wars. John Williams, the composer of Star Wars, he used a lot of music from this composer called Gustav Holst, called The Planets. He used a lot of that major big symphony music to score that movie, and that's where a lot of orchestras are finding work these days, is in scoring for movies, because nothing brings that scale, that grand scale, than a full acoustic symphony orchestra. Doesn't matter how many bands you have, doesn't matter how many guitarists or anything like that you have. The full symphony orchestra and packed out string, 50 string players, through trombones, trumpets, winds, all the percussion, all of that put together in a big symphony. Nothing beats that.
Nothing beats that. I think that creates a kind of a vibe in the theater where it really just people just go lost into that music for that particular period of time when it's playing.
Absolutely,
it's a beautiful experience. I think it's a vibing experience
that a lot of people don't realize, like when they see something like on paper, like, okay, yeah, symphony orchestra, cool, or they think like, whoa, it's like something very classical. But if they manage to get themselves inside that building when that music is being played, when every single musician of that symphony orchestra is playing, and you're lost in that universal sound, that universe of that grand symphonic scale of sound, you just get transported into a different.
In most of the Western orchestra, they have 100 strings orchestra, 100-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
They don't have really a vocal. I think your orchestra has introduced, or maybe some are doing, but you have a number of vocals supporting that orchestra BGM.
Yeah.
So was it the conscious decision you wanted to introduce vocal to it, or you wanted to keep it plain and then realize that, okay, I think we need vocal?
No, we definitely need vocal. I mean, the voice is the best instrument known to humans. It is, our mothers sing to us when we're born, and when we're toddlers. It's something that that really speaks to our soul. So you have to have the human voice as part of the orchestra. Purely instrumental is also wonderful, but when you can couple it with the human voice, it's just something very, very special. And usually what we see is, vocals with bands are great, but when you have it with the full symphony orchestra, it's seriously the best of the best. It is, you get the best of both worlds. You get, your beautiful vocals, but then you get the rich harmony and melodies all, fleshed out in a universal grand symphony orchestra. It's
so the next concert you have. What would be the difference from the previous concert?
So we're doing the different pieces, and we've also got dancers as well. So we've got Kathak dancers, for doing Meredolna, and we've got a Sufi dancer for doing Chap Tilak. So we're bringing these elements of Indian art onto the Australian stage. So that's something that Aussies really love to see, because Australians are very open-minded. They're really accepting of different cultures, and they love to see they love to travel. You see Aussies abroad everywhere. And
they're a bit travelers. They're a bit travelers.
Big time, yeah. Bali, Indonesia, that's the number one destination. But they love to travel, and they love to go to India as well. You'll see a lot of Aussies in India. And yeah, they're very open-minded, very adventurous. So when music from abroad comes to Australia, it's very popular. It's very well received. So we want to showcase what the best of India, the best of Indian talent on Australian stages, and that's what we're doing.
Is it ever occurred to bring Kannada music to orchestra?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, one at a time.
Is it on the horizon?
Yes. There's a lot of fantastic Kannada music that's in a lot of movies and TV shows, but also in Kannada classical Carnatic music as well. So yeah, that's definitely on the horizon for sure. Yeah.
It was wonderful talking. Now I just want to bring some personal aspect of yourself. Is there any personal moment, any personal experience, what shaped you of what you are today? Be it support from the family, support from the friends, and support from your younger brother.
Yeah, definitely being an older brother, you have to take on a lot of responsibility. Being a role model, you have to watch your actions, and also being part of the family as well. You have to think about what your role is in the family. And the support that I've got from my brother and my family has just been, it's shaped who I am. And that's where we got the idea from, the orchestra as well, is that my parents are you brothers are so talented. Why don't you do something, integrate your community, integrate your Indianness into what you do, because that was the kind of sentiment from my parents, is he's becoming too Western. He's going too far into the West. We need to bring him back.
Was it ever discussion in the house, when you are not around, but you just overheard them that this is going a little bit of Western?
Yeah. Especially my mom, she felt maybe she was losing me a little bit to the culture wise to the West.
Yeah.
So she wanted to, every time I show any kind of interest in Carnatic music or some kind of artists, she's like, oh yes, come on, let me show you these things. I think for me, I think about I think for a lot of Desi kids, your parents' approval and your parents, what your parents think of you is really, really important. And I think it is important to a big extent. But at the same time, you have to do what's right for yourself and what you feel happy with yourself doing. So I try and make my parents proud as much as I can. And because that makes me feel happy and feel like I'm on the right path doing what I'm meant to be doing. And yeah, it's they're definitely have influenced.
I think
me a
most parents see most Desi parents in outside India sees the kids as there's a term called ABCD. Are you aware about the term?
No, okay, you'll tell me.
Yeah,
what is it?
So the term originated from the US.
Okay.
That was back in, I think, 90s. They call it American-born confused Desi.
Confused Desi,
So that was used for, Desi kids back in the 70s, 80s, growing up as a teenager out of the uni and all this. Because they are in a search of, their existence. Am I American? Am I Indian? Am I American-Indian? Am I Indian-American? So that term was... I think some newspaper article came up with this term again for the Desi.
Yeah.
Similar applies for Australian-born confused Desi. So
yeah.
A lot of most Indian parents see the kids as is he confused? Is he lost in some identity crisis?
Totally. Life is confusing. Life is hard and confusing.
So with this, is there any highs and lows during your professional journey you encountered, or any setbacks? I'm sure you might have encountered, but how did you overcome it, or what was your treatment to that phase?
Yeah. It's look, I'm still young and I'm still growing. So obviously, as a musician, you do auditions. So there's a lot of auditions that you don't get, but there are also a lot of auditions you do get. And a lot of times, I've asked myself, like, when I don't get into an audition, my initial response is, sadness that I didn't get it. But then there's another thought that creeps into your mind to kind of like protect your ego, which is like, oh, maybe I didn't want that audition anyway. Like, I didn't want to join them. They don't deserve me. Yeah. So there's also those kinds of like setbacks that you get, but then you learn to sort of like push past that and grow and improve. I've always been interested in forming my own group and forming my own sets of musicians, because I, in one can say like, yeah, I didn't get into the, Sydney Symphony, or I didn't get into the, whichever orchestra, of one audition. But there's always going to be setbacks in life, and that's when you need your support network like around you. So I have like, some good friends, and I also have like my family who I was able to like speak with and sort of understand what direction I wanted to take like music in, and what role like music like played. Because when you take something very seriously and you put a lot of effort into it and it doesn't work out, it can kind of be like you can interpret it as a bit of an attack on your own identity. It's like, am I good enough? It kind of taps into that if you don't get an audition or something like that. But once you do enough auditions, and once you do,
you get used to it.
You get used to being rejected, but you also get used to getting accepted as well. There's where one door closes and another door opens. So I've always been sort of interested in how do we make music. Like, at the end of the day, it's about making music, it's about enjoying life, and it's about bringing people along for that journey. So yeah,
I think every experience is either learning or reward.
Yeah,
it's just kind of that. So during those rough times, who is your first choice to speak with? Your mom?
My dad.
Your dad?
My dad. Yeah.
Wow. A lot of the kids are choosing moms, but glad you choose your dad.
Yeah. My dad's a wonderful man. He's very caring. So is my mom. But my dad, he's always been, I guess, when growing up as a kid, when our mom was like very like quite strict with us, which is we're very grateful for. If she wasn't strict with us, we wouldn't have got like far in violin or music or anything at all. But if mom didn't allow us to get a treat or a snack or play video games or something, we would go to dad, and dad would allow that kind of thing. But over time, dad has always been very supportive, as well as mom. But for me personally, I've always been closer to my dad, and he's always provided like the right advice, or like what he's told me what I needed to hear in that moment to like calm me down, or to show me the right way and help me find that direction. So yeah, he'll be the one I'll call, but I'll also call my mom as well, and I'll also call my friends and my brother as well. I'm quite close with my brother. We used to fight a lot, as kids, but that's just what kids do. And then after I kind of grew out, because we're 6 years apart, so we did most of our fighting when I was in my early teens, and he was like 6 or 7. And then after that, I got bored. I'm like, why am I fighting with you? Come on, let's just be friends. Let's just get along.
But you never knew that the guy who is fighting you one day would be a ranger.
Yeah, that's right.
I know to work under him.
And I'll work under him. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I tell him it's his job to be better than me. So people ask me like, hey man, this guy's like kind of showing you up. He's doing, he's better at arranging than you. He's better at this, better at that. But I'm like, yeah, but I taught him all that, the student has to be better than the master. So,
all right. So any piece of advice you want to give to younger yourself?
Work harder.
Work harder.
Work harder on your music, but do it for the fun of it. Like, yeah, don't take things too seriously, and just like try and have fun like as much as you can. Because I was always very good at like making people laugh and engaging people. But I think in terms of like really sitting down and getting stuff done, in terms of working on my craft, I would have told myself.
Thanks a lot, Sagar. It was a incredible experience for me to diving into your musical journey and starting up the next journey for our next podcast. Definitely would love to have you and Suraj both sitting on the couch and talk to each other and find out whatever you said is true or not. But it was a great experience, and thanks a lot for coming to Curious Banter. I wish all the success for the November concert and many other concerts coming up in the future.
Thank you so much, Veer. Follow Curious Banter, best podcast out there.